Well, hello there. It is another episode of Chance Points, that show where I travel to the middle of nowhere to find nothing. And today that's exactly what I'm up to for the first time in quite a few weeks. And there is a little twist to today's destination, which you shall see when I get there. What could it possibly be? You shall find out. Anyhow, I'm currently paused in the outskirts of the Phoenix area. I'm going to pop into an antique mall to check to see if there's any vintage lenses available for purchase. It's a couple days after Christmas, so I'm avoiding all the Christmas rush nonsense. Anyways, since the last time I did an episode, quite a bit has been going on in my life. I was going through a pretty intense interview process with several companies, and I finally landed a new job, which makes these budgets for these trips a little bit less tight. Thank goodness. The 2025 job market was something else. Anyhow, I'm hoping this adventure, which is going to be an overnight trip, will have a little bit less drama than a couple of the recent ones. The last one, I got pretty close to the waypoint, but could not get to the underbrush to get there. And previous to that one, I popped a tire. So I am hoping that I am able to get to the waypoint and I avoid trouble, as one should do. Anyhow, we have some goals for this trip. First and foremost, we find the waypoint. I believe the difficulty on this is like a 0.5. It's super easy. I plotted it out this morning to figure out where I was going to be going today, and when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah, I can get there. You'll see. So that's some foreshadowing. Not very dramatic, but hopefully you don't click away from this video because, you know, YouTube hates that sort of thing. And then they come over and send some agents to beat me up. Fortunately, they're AI agents, so I could actually confuse them with some, random prompts. The second goal, all my meals I'm going to try to keep under $20, which is getting to be harder and harder to do in this very expensive restaurant world, especially the sit-down restaurants, which I'm finding to be less and less satisfying. Third, when I figure out my accommodations for tonight, I'm going to try to keep it under $80, but also not be a cesspool or cockroach motel. I do have something in mind tonight if I get to that point. We shall see if I can make it. Third, I'm going to be stopping at antique malls and pawn shops along the way to see if I can find some vintage lenses. We shall see if I succeed. So if this weird adventure that I'm going on, which is randomly generated, sounds interesting, why don't you go ahead and maybe give a subscribe here and continue watching and see what happens, because as some of my past episodes demonstrated, things can go awry unexpectedly. Anyhow, it's time to pop into the Brass Armadillo to see what they have. Well, no luck today. But there's more stores along this route, so we shall see what happens. All right, we are taking a little leg stretching break. This is not the waypoint or anywhere near it yet. But as a hint as to where I'm going, in the distance over there, which you may or may not be able to see in this tiny screen. Well, you may be looking at a big screen. I have no idea. Anyhow, that is Highway 93 that goes from Phoenix to Las Vegas, which should give you a little hint on where I'm heading to, or at least a general vicinity. As you can see, we have a dramatic sort of cloudy day, which is kind of nice. The atmospheric rivers that have been hammering California have been kind of sending that a little bit of moisture out our way, so that's always kind of nice. Anyhow, Highway 93, one of my absolute least favorite roads to drive. For a portion of it, it's a lot of 2-lane or limited passing lanes, and people drive like crazy. I have no idea why they're gambling with their lives just to get to Las Vegas to gamble away their money. And they lose all the money, they gamble with their lives again coming back. So, not one of my favorite places to drive. I believe it's one of the most dangerous highways in all of Arizona, if not even the country. I'll try to dig up some statistics, put on the screen here to kind of verify my point. So yeah, not my favorite, but fortunately I'm now about the point where it turns into a 4-lane highway up to Interstate 40. So it gets a little bit safer. And it becomes a very beautiful drive up in there. And it actually is a beautiful drive even in 2-lane sections because the scenery is awesome. There's a Joshua tree forest, there's cactus. So if people just take it easy, not get crazy about passing, it's really not a bad situation. Anyhow, as you may recall, this road takes us through the town of Wickiup, which I've warned you in past videos is don't buy gas in Wickiup. It's always way more expensive. I topped off in Wickenburg, so I'm safe to get to Kingman, which is where I plan to have some lunch. Anyways, I think my legs are sufficiently stretched, and it's time to brave that highway over there and hopefully not get run over by crazy tourists who want to give away their money to casino corporations. One thing that just occurred to me that I forgot to mention is all the rainstorms in California and possibly Nevada. I don't know if some of my side quest ideas are going to pan out today, which, if you recall from last summer, the area I'm going to in the Mojave Desert, I got drenched with some monsoon storms and had to abandon my plans, so we shall see if I get thwarted from the side quest later today. My first attempt at lunch was to go to the In-N-Out in Kingman, Arizona, but unfortunately the line was out the door, so I was thwarted. I looked up a nearby taco over-the-counter Mexican place and decided to go there instead, and it was delicious. Best of all, I stayed under budget. Next stop was a pawn shop to see if I could find a vintage lens, but all they had were modern automatic focus cameras and lenses. No luck. So here I am, about 1,000 feet away from the waypoint. I am in Boulder City, Nevada. This is one of the more urban waypoints I've gone to, as it's literally just right outside the edge of the city, kind of a city park area. Boulder City was founded when they started building the Hoover Dam. Of course, it's called the Boulder Dam back then, and for some reason decided to name it after Hoover, despite his Great Depression stuff. It looks like people have some fun out here. Pretty rugged desert. We're pretty dang hot in the summertime, but it's about 60 right now, so it's really quite nice. It's about 630 feet away, kind of towards that power line. When I set up this GPS point this morning, which was randomly selected, by the way, only mild funny business, knew this was going to be one of the easy ones for me to find, because no dirt roads, right at the edge of a city, just have to walk through a little bit of desert. I don't wonder what this used to be, though. This looks like this might have been a road. Yep, that's asphalt. Slightly different prickly pear than we have in Arizona. Could have stopped at the Hoover Dam today, but the line to it was miles long. I know it's a holiday, but you think people will be like, I can look at the dam another time. Go back to Vegas and blow all their money. That's what Vegas really wants. So this must have been access road for the power line, by assumption anyways. 200 feet away or so. Never fails to find an empty bottle out here. This was definitely one of those trips where my ulterior motive to come into this part of the Mojave Desert was to do a little bit of makeup for last summer when I tried to go out to Mojave Desert Preserve and the monsoon storms prevented me from doing so. So once this is completed, we're gonna gas up, head that way. Try to get out there and get some photos of some abandoned stuff. And right now I'm thinking Barstow is where I'll be staying tonight. One of the most lovely cities in California. It's actually not bad. There's good Mexican food there. 134 feet away. Or less. Probably should go in the correct direction now. I'm really close. As always, the goal is to get within 20 feet because GPSs like to bounce around a little bit. And I'm basically here. I'll let the GPS settle down a bit. Here's our random waypoint. Success. Get my screenshot to prove I was here. Technically 11.2 feet away. So already we're in this little circle here. It is my random geopoint. Well, I have succeeded in something today. Now begins the fun of the side quest and hoping nothing goes wrong. Gonna hoof it back to the car, like I said, find gas, and head out into the desert and hope that the storms recently did not wash out any of the roads that need to go on today, because that would sure stink and thwart me. But there's some stuff at I-15 that I would enjoy checking out. All right, time to put this down and head back to the car. Yeah, the twist for today's episode was this is not the middle of nowhere. Sure, I found nothing when I got here, but this is definitely not the middle of nowhere, because behind me is somewhere. All right, we are at Gold Dome Mill. It's an abandoned mine facility out in the Mojave Desert in the preserve. And as you can tell, this has been turned into a little bit of an art installation, which is pretty cool. This building over here has a rather impressive thing, so let's wander over there. A little bit of wind here makes it sound very creepy. That's a massive piece of art there. And the difference between art and vandalism is skill. I'm going to put down the GoPro and take some photos, and I'll share them on the screen for you. This place is an absolute trip. A little creepy, I have to admit. I'm not usually freaked out by abandoned places, but the rattly metal is disconcerting to say the least. But yeah, there's a mixture of interesting and cool art and scribbles and tagging and just some fun stuff. Kind of crazy they actually cut the metal out to create their art. It's not something they did in a 20-minute period with this can of spray paint, that's for sure. Now we'll go check out the building over here. Well, I'm certainly glad I didn't try to come here last summer during that monsoon storm. I would have gotten so stuck. That road is basically impassable in a rainstorm. But I'm glad I finally made it here. Been thinking about it since last July. All right, that's really my only side quest I had planned for today. My intention now is to head off to Barstow, find a place to stay for the night, figure out a meal situation, and if they got a microbrewery, I might actually go, might give myself a pint of beer tonight. So as usual, if anything interesting or unpleasant happens, I'll be putting it on film. Heavy traffic at I-15 meant I couldn't get to the abandoned spots that I planned to take some photographs of until it was a little bit after the sun went down. I did get a couple shots, but I need to go back there someday and do a better exploration. I got to Barstow well after dark, checked into my hotel, and stayed under budget for it. I then looked up a place to eat that was within walking distance and found a place, Barstow Burger, so I could have just a basic burger for the evening. I didn't really want anything too special. There were no microbreweries in Barstow, so I headed back to my room and read a book for a while because I am that exciting. I've made it to my hotel for the night in Barstow after a rather fun experience of super busy I-15 between the California border and Barstow. Y'all got to figure out what keep right except to pass means. That was quite tedious. Anyways, I found something to eat, and I'm getting ready to have some relaxation before bedtime. Quick tour of the hotel room. It is perfectly adequate, which is all I could ask for. And for our debrief for the day, we're doing pretty good on the goals for the most part. Found the waypoint, no problems there. I did visit one pawn shop, antique store, no luck with the vintage lens. 2 antique stores actually. No luck finding vintage lenses. What can you do? And finally, my meals have been keeping well under budget, which I'm very happy about. So tomorrow is to get back home to Tucson since I have to work Monday morning. I think there's one side quest I might do in a way. Otherwise, the rest of the trip is going to be looking for abandoned buildings out in the Mojave Desert to take photos of as I go. But yeah, there's one thing marked on my map I'm trying to check out in the morning, so we shall see how that goes. And I'll film anything interesting, and hopefully there's no disasters before I get back home tomorrow. Here it is, a mysteriously named giant rock. The thing is bigger than a lot of buildings. Kind of fits with the theme of a Boulder adventure. And just give you context of how big this thing is. And apparently this part sheared off like 25 years ago or something. The remainder of the day was spent traveling on Highway 62 in California that goes across the Mojave Desert. I stopped to take a handful of pictures, which you see on the screen here. And now the chance points pointing system, which we know is a bit redundant. At the end of the venture, I tally up the points based on finding the waypoint and any goals stated at the start of the video. In this case, it was discussing my budget and any side quests that I had going on. So for finding the waypoints, I get a total of 5 points because I found a great success. As for the other goals, I give myself 4 points because I about had 75% success on it. I wasn't able to find any vintage lenses, but I was otherwise able to stay under budget for the trip. I hope you enjoyed yet another episode where I go to the middle of nowhere to find nothing, and my reward system is entirely imaginary.